Hello and welcome. Good morning and good afternoon to all the distinguished speakers, panelists and participants who have joined us virtually today. It is my great honour to warmly welcome you to this high-level side event taking place on the sidelines of the 76th session of the UN General Assembly on cash programming in the time of COVID-19, scaling reach and strengthening local action. My name is Emma Dilo and I'm the technical lead for cash at the Red Cross Red Crescent Cash Hub, hosted by British Red Cross. The Cash Hub works to support Red Cross and Red Crescent national societies in the IFRC network to increase the scale, quality and timeliness of cash, thereby improving the choice of those affected by crisis. I've worked for over 20 years in humanitarian recovery, livelihoods, markets and cash, working mainly in Asia, Africa and the Pacific, with various components of the Red Cross Red Crescent family, Oxfam GB, the Cash Learning Partnership and UNESCO. My role here today is to moderate this important side event, co-organised by the Permanent Mission of Turkey, the Permanent Mission of Norway, the European Union, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, or the IFRC as I shall refer to them, and Turkish Red Crescent Society. On behalf of all the co-organisers, I would like to thank all of our distinguished speakers. This high-level side event is particularly timely because the COVID-19 pandemic has acted as an accelerator for cash and voucher assistance, and it is important to take time to reflect and ensure that this acceleration continues. So why has there been this acceleration? Since the beginning of the pandemic, more and more humanitarian organisations have recognised cash as a modality to address the socio-economic impacts of COVID, with vulnerable households facing reduced household incomes and purchasing power, whilst expenses for basic needs, health and education have increased, meaning that people are experiencing greater risks and often turn to negative coping strategies to survive. The pandemic has shown the limitations of more traditional forms of humanitarian assistance, with cash being able to be managed and delivered remotely, thereby reducing transition risks. Global evidence across multiple emergencies and contexts overwhelmingly demonstrates that cash can meet a variety of needs of people in a more dignified, safe, appropriate, and often more cost-effective way, if provided in the right amounts, at the right time, and with the right complementary programs and services. Cash can make a really valuable contribution to people's resilience and well-being and link humanitarian and development outcomes. Indeed, the pandemic has shone a spotlight on national actors and the importance of investing in locally led humanitarian assistance linked to national social protection measures. The World Bank estimated that more than $800 billion was invested in social protection measures in the last 9 months of 2020, with a third of these measures using cash and reaching more than 14% of the world's total population. Recent research has also concluded that much greater investment is required in locally led humanitarian action to support national actors and their governments to become cash ready, with the organisational capacities to deliver scalable, timely and good quality cash. If this is done during preparedness, the benefits include a reshifting of the power dynamics inherent in the aid architecture, greater confidence and voice to crisis-affected populations and the national organisations that service them. The IFRC, along with other humanitarian organisations, has been leading large-scale cash programmes for decades in response to a broad spectrum of disasters around the globe. The IFRC has set ambitious targets to continue to strengthen cash approaches, and we expect that 50% of humanitarian assistance will be delivered through cash by 2025. In 2020 alone, the IFRC and the Red Cross Red Crescent network delivered more than 867 million Swiss francs to more than 10 million people in 116 countries, with more than 75 national societies responding to COVID using cash. There is much to learn to fully transform humanitarian aid through the increased uptake of cash assistance, and a great place to start today is with that learning from the largest humanitarian cash programme in the world, the Emergency Social Safety Net programme, which is being implemented by the Turkish Red Crescent and the IFRC with funding from the European Union. As of August 2021, via the ESSN, 1.5 million refugees in Turkey receive regular monthly cash assistance, enabling people to decide for themselves how to cover essential needs such as food, rent, transport bills and medicine. so it's very important we reflect today. Today's event, what are we going to be doing? We will provide an overview of cash and its importance as a method of delivering humanitarian assistance. We will explore ways to safely scale up cash and strengthen local action and preparedness, including in digital delivery, protecting personal data, ensuring the security of that data, and building up local infrastructure. And also we will share case studies of cash assistance around the world to highlight best practice in the field and lessons learned. But before we officially begin, there are a couple of housekeeping measures to take care of. We will have closed captioning. The event will be recorded, so do feel free to leave your videos on or to turn them off if you're not comfortable. Please do stay on mute if you're not speaking, so we can give the best chance to our speakers to be heard. You're also very welcome to post any questions and comments in the chat box during the panel conversation after the opening remarks. You don't have to wait for the Q&A. We have also shared some hashtags, or we will, in the chat. So please share these widely through your social media. I am now pleased to introduce our first distinguished speaker, Mr. Andreas Papakonstantinou, Director for European Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid Operations for the European Union, who will kick us off with his opening remarks. Thank you, Andreas.
Thank you, Emma. Dear colleagues, I would like, first of all, to thank the Permanent Mission of Turkey, the Permanent Mission of Norway, the IFRC, and the Turkish Red Crescent Society for the timely call of this high-level event on cash in the context of COVID-19. I would like to thank Emma, our moderator, Emma Dilo, for her very pertinent remarks. And I would like also to welcome all other speakers today. The European Union has a long-standing undertaking to the use of humanitarian cash transfers, where, of course, it is appropriate to the context. The most recent humanitarian aid communication dating from March of this year is the last of such commitments, reinforcing the long-standing pledge of the European Union to using cash assistance in humanitarian settings, highlighting the commitment to extend the use of secure and efficient digital tools, and underpinning the crucial role of cash in the nexus, the humanitarian development peace nexus. For us in DG ECHO, cash is primarily a tool to respond to a range of humanitarian needs. DG ECHO takes every opportunity to scale up the use of cash where appropriate. The use of cash transfers has improved the efficiency and effectiveness of humanitarian assistance, generating better value for money for donors and taxpayers alike, and leading to more aid directly reaching the beneficiaries. That is a reason why throughout the years, DG ECHO and its partners have progressively achieved higher efficiency ratios, which have resulted in increased EU assistance directly reaching the affected people in the world. Since DG ECHO first published its thematic policy document on cash back in 2013, there have been significant global developments at a policy and a technical level, alongside, of course, a significant increase in the volume of cash transferred. The use of cash now is widely recognized as the most efficient and effective way of getting humanitarian assistance to people affected by conflicts or disasters, even whenever appropriate and possible. And above all, cash offers beneficiaries dignity, choice, and flexibility. Building on the lessons learned over this period of time, DG ECHO is finalizing the revision of its guidance on cash. Our policy stance on humanitarian cash transfers will soon be published and available to all stakeholders. Cash transfers have largely proven to be effective in providing affected people with the means and the flexibility to decide and prioritize their recovery. Cash delivery supports local markets, lays the foundations for communities' recovery and resilience, and can complement existing social protection systems. The evidence base is already extensive, and it shows that the modality of cash is a transparent efficient and effective way of delivering humanitarian aid. Cash is generally correlated with better outcomes, particularly in terms of investment in durable solutions and food security and psychological well-being. And in this sense, COVID-19, this big pandemic that we're all living under, is no exception. Humanitarian cash transfers have played a critical role in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, supporting continuity and safety in the delivery of assistance. The most vulnerable have been hit hardest by the economic consequences of the pandemic, and cash can help meet basic needs as incomes fall. Providing cash into local economies has a multiplier effect, and it supports the resilience of critical market systems hit by COVID-19. As a result of the pandemic, and in line with our commitment to support cash as a delivery modality whenever possible, I keep insisting on that, whenever possible, we have recommended to our partners to scale up the use of cash transfers even further for preparedness and response activities in the context of the crisis of COVID-19. Recommendations include enhancing digital solutions to advocate with national authorities to address policies that impede the use of cash transfers, and to link to and expand national social protection mechanisms to respond to the shocks of COVID-19 as feasible. DG ECHO strongly advocates for a predictable and accountable approach to cash coordination and funds positions that contribute to this. We are actively engaged in coordination fora, including the Donor Cash Forum, DCF, which we co-chair along Switzerland. Through our involvement in the DCF, DG ECHO aims to facilitate collective engagement of donors. That's very important in order to make progress in the field of humanitarian cash programming and alignment of work under the grand bargain. Allow me to give one example of a successful cash program, and I will basically replicate what Emma Dilo said. It's the Emergency Social Safety Net in Turkey. This ESSN program, as the acronym goes, is the European Union's largest ever humanitarian program. We have engaged over 2.2 billion euros on the ESSN, of which 900 million directly through the IFRC. On the 1st of April 2020, as Emma said, the ESSN was taken over by the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies in partnership with the Turkish Red Crescent. And before that, the ESSN was set up and run by the WFP together with Turkish partners organizations. And it provides the most vulnerable registered refugees with monthly direct cash transfers onto an electronic debit card, and helps them recover their basic needs in areas like food, shelter, and education. As of July 2021, more than 1.5 million refugees are benefiting from the ESSN. This is the largest, I repeat, single humanitarian project in the history of the EU. So, dear colleagues, I would like to thank you for your attention. And now I would like to go back to the following speaker, who is a colleague from Turkey. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Andreas, for that excellent speech. Really useful to highlight the role that cash can play, both for people's dignity, choice and flexibility, as well as the opportunities it offers for more efficiency and effectiveness. I just wanted to ask everyone to make sure you can turn on your closed captions. There is a CC button at the bottom right of your Zoom window. Do please turn that on now, and that will make sure that you can access the captions transcript at the bottom, because our next distinguished speaker will be speaking in Turkish, and you will need to see the English subtitles at the bottom. So they will come up on the live transcript on the Zoom window. So without further ado, our next opening speaker is His Excellency Ismail Ergens, Deputy Minister for Family and Social Services from Turkey. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Sayın Avrupa Birliği temsilcisi, Sayın Büyükelçi, Uluslararası Kızılaç ve Kızılay Dernekleri Federasyonu'nun kıymetli temsilcileri, Birleşmiş Milletler Genel Kurulu'nun COVID-19 salgınında nakit programlama temalı oturumun hayırlara vesile olmasını diliyor. Hepinizi saygıyla, sevgiyle, muhabbetle selamlıyorum. Dünya olarak COVID-19 salgını başta olmak üzere sağlığımızı, ekonomimizi, toplumsal barışımızı ve geleceğimizi etkileyen birçok sorunla yüzleşiyoruz. Dünya genelinde 170 milyon insanın acil yardım ve korumaya ihtiyaç duyduğu bir tabloyla karşı karşıyayız. Açlık çekenlerin sayısı 820 milyonu aşarken 70 milyondan fazla insan da çatışma ve baskılardan dolayı evlerini terk etmek zorunda kalmıştır. COVID-19 salgını maalesef dünyadaki bu adaletsizlik ve eşitsizlikleri çok daha keskin bir hale getirmiştir. Dünyanın milli gelire göre en fazla yardım yapan ülkesi olarak elimizdeki tüm imkanlarla salgının yol açtığı sıkıntıları hafifletmeye çalışıyoruz. Bu süreçte kendi vatandaşlarımızın ihtiyaçlarını giderirken din, dil, ırk, kıta ayrımı gözetmeksizin dünyanın 146 ülkesine tıbbi malzeme ve teçhizat gönderdik. COVID-19 salgının ortaya çıkardığı yeni sonuçlarla birlikte değerlendirildiğinde küresel sistem kapsamlı bir dönüşümle karşı karşıyadır. Küresel salgın, düzensiz göç, uluslararası terörizm, küresel ısınma, açlık, kuraklık, adaletsizlik, sürdürülebilir büyüme, başarısız devletler, iç savaşlar gibi sorunlar tüm insanlığı tehdit eder hale geldi. Son zamanlarda bu karmaşaya devletler arası gerilim de eklendi. Aşırı kazanç hırsı, güç temerküzü ve sömürgeciliğin yeni metotlarla devam etmesi küresel sistemin adalet dağıtmasının önündeki en büyük engeldir. Adalet noktasında düşündüğümüzde COVID-19 salgınının da en çok mültecilerin risk ve zorluklarla karşı karşıya bırakıldığını görmekteyiz. Pandemi süreciyle birlikte mültecilerin büyük bir kısmı iş kaybı ile karşı karşıya kalmıştır. Kira, gıda, eğitim, hijyen malzemeleri gibi temel ihtiyaçlarını dahi karşılamakta zorlandıklarını müşahede ediyoruz. Değerli katılımcılar, uluslararası ve geçici koruma kapsamında yaklaşık 5 milyon kişiye ev sahipliği yapan ülkemiz, mültecilerin hassasiyetlerine ve ihtiyaçlarına yanıt verecek projeler geliştirmiştir. Ülkemiz, yabancılara yönelik sosyal uyum yardımı ve yabancılara yönelik şartlı eğitim yardımı kapsamında COVID-19 ek ödemesi gerçekleştirmiştir. Sosyal uyum yardımının 2016 yılından bu yana Uluslararası Kızılaç ve Kızılay Dernekleri Federasyonu işbirliğiyle dünyadaki en büyük nakit yardımı programı olarak sürdürmekteyiz. Sosyal uyum yardımının uygunluk kriterlerini karşılayan ailelere Türk Kızılay'ın ödeme platformu Kızılay Kart aracıyla bunları gerçekleştirmekteyiz. Sadece pandemi döneminde ülkemiz sosyal uyum yardımı projesinden yararlanan yaklaşık 1.800.000 kişiye 2 kez ek ödeme yardımı sağlamıştır. Her bir yardımın miktarı kişi başı normal ödeme miktarının 4 katı tutarındadır. Bu projenin yaklaşık 2 yıl önce yeniden geliştirilmesi gündeme gelmişti. Ancak COVID-19 salgınının yarattığı olumsuz etkiler projenin devamının gerekliliğini bir kez daha ortaya koymuştur. Kıymetli katılımcılar, sosyal uyum yardımının devamı olarak 2021 Temmuz ayı itibariyle yabancılar için tamamlayıcı sosyal uyum yardımı programını başlattık. İki projenin hedef kitlesi benzerlik gösterse de tamamlayıcı sosyal uyum yardımı engellilik ya da yaş faktörü nedeniyle iş gücüne yönlendirilemeyen gruplar için aylık ödeme miktarlarını daha yüksek tutmaktadır. Proje COVID-19 döneminde oluşturulduğu için de pandemi döneminin finansal ve sosyal koşullarına tam olarak uygun devam etmektedir. Diğer projemiz şartlı eğitim yardımı ise özellikle genç nüfusun eğitim çağındaki çocuklarının okullaşmasını teşvik etmek amacıyla hayata geçirilmiştir. Etkili bir sosyal yardım politikası oluşturulmasında ve yoksullukla mücadelenin başarılı olmasında eğitim faktörü kritik bir önem taşımaktadır. Şartlı eğitim yardımı okuluna düzenli devam eden sığınmacı ailelerin çocuklarını aylık nakit yardımı ile desteklemekteyiz. Kız öğrencilere pozitif ayrımcılık sağlanarak erkek öğrencilere oranla biraz daha yüksek bir yardım vermekteyiz. Pandemi döneminde yaklaşık 520 bin çocuğa rutin ödemelerin dışında Kasım 2020 yılında ek ödeme yapılmıştır. Özellikle vurgulamak isterim ki şartlı eğitim yardımı 2022 sonrasında da fonlanması tüm dünyanın geleceği için kritik derecede önemlidir. Bu projeler salgın döneminde ülkemizin iyi uygulama örnekleri arasında gösterilmiştir. 28 devlet kurumunun veri tabanı ile entegre olan web tabanlı bütün yardım programları bütünleşik sosyal yardım bilgi sistemi üzerinden yürütülmektedir. 1003 sosyal yardımlaşma ve dayanışma vakfımız ve aynı zamanda Kızılay hizmet merkezlerimizle birlikte bahsettiğimiz projelere başvuruların alınması, değerlendirilmesi, sonuçlanması ve takip edilmesi için bu sistemi kullanmaktayız. Böylelikle proje yararlanıcılarının belirlenmesi, ödeme tutarları, doğrulama işlemleri gibi tüm faaliyetler tamamen otomatik bilişim sistemi tarafından uygulanmaktadır. Kıymetli katılımcılar, insani değerleri yaşatmak hepimizin ortak sorumluluğudur. Hepimiz çok iyi biliyoruz ki yaşanan şiddet ve terör nedeniyle milyonlarca insan evlerini terk etmek zorunda kalmış ve başka ülkelere sığınmıştır. Türkiye bu insanlık dramı karşısında sessiz kalmamış, üzerine düşeni yapmaya gayret etmiştir. Türkiye misafir ettiği sığınmacıların her türlü ihtiyacını karşılamak için gereken fedakarlığı göstermekte tereddüt etmemiştir. Salgın döneminde uluslararası toplumu tehdit eden tüm imtihanlara karşı ortaklaşa mücadele ve işbirliğinde birlikte hareket etmek mecburiyetindeyiz. Salgını adalet noktasında bir fırsat olarak görmeli ve küresel adaleti tesis edecek yeni bir reformla sosyal yardım alanı için adım atmalıyız. Bu duygularla sözlerime son verirken COVID-19 salgınında nakit programlama, erişimi ölçeklendirme ve yerel müdahaleyi güçlendirme konulu Birleşmiş Milletler Genel Kurulu'nun oturumunun faydalarını hep birlikte görebilmeyi diliyoruz. Hepinizi sevgi, saygı ve muhabbetle selamlıyorum.
Thank you so much for those esteemed comments and such an informed overview of some of the challenges of our time, and particularly for people on the move and refugees. Thank you for highlighting already some of that good practice from the ESSM programme to ensure that it can reach and be informed by different groups of people with different vulnerabilities, whilst maintaining the systems and methods needed to do that in such a good quality way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next opening speaker is the Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh. So I'd like to welcome to the floor His Excellency Ambassador Masood bin Momen. Your Excellency, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, for giving me the floor. Distinguished panelists and participants, I thank the Permanent Mission of Turkey and Norway, European Union, IFRC, and the Turkish Red Crescent Society for organizing this event today. We appreciate its focus on cash programming in the era of COVID-19 and beyond. The pandemic has hit the poorest and the most marginalized groups of our societies the hardest. Millions of people have been pushed into poverty and hunger. The inequalities have increased both within and across societies. The health systems in most countries have been shattered. children's education faces a generational catastrophe. Malnutrition has risen for children who depend on school feeding programs. Against this backdrop, we stress the importance of scaling up cash programming. Direct cash transfer can have transformative impacts on delivery of social safety net services, especially by reducing the distribution challenges, transfer costs, leakages, middlemanships, and other systemic losses. In Bangladesh, we have taken up a multi-pronged approach to tackle the adverse impacts of the pandemic. For helping the most marginalized people and critical sectors of our economy, the government has declared an ambitious budget of about $72 billion with enhanced fiscal measures and social safety net coverage. Earlier, the government rolled out 28 stimulus packages to the tune of $14.6 billion. Direct cash transfers has been identified as an essential delivery tool to make these initiatives successful. Even before the pandemic, we had some successful national cash transfer programs. Old age allowances and widowed and distressed women allowances are two prominent ones among these. Our National Social Security Strategy 2015 has laid out specific roadmap to institutionalize direct cash transfers. During the pandemic, these helped us scaling up government to person delivery system to reach those who are the farthest behind in the most transparent and accountable manner. We have already disbursed $166 million in the form of direct cash transfers to more than 4.44 million people. The poor, elderly, widows, disabled persons, day laborers, farmers, and informal sector workers are the top beneficiaries. Our advancements in digital inclusion helped ensuring direct cash transfers to the various beneficiary groups via mobile financial services and banking channels efficiently and in a transparent manner. Distinguished participants, cash transfer programs have played a key role to protect millions of poor and disadvantaged people around the world during this pandemic. Yet there are daunting challenges in establishing effective delivery solutions of direct cash transfer, especially for those who are unbanked and digitally unconnected. Let me share a few specific thoughts in this regard. First, the pandemic has shown the effectiveness of digital cash transfer to reach the last mile beneficiaries when the traditional ways become ineffective. Yet many countries lack essential infrastructure and ecosystem to reap the maximum benefits of digital financial services and fintechs. It is imperative to invest more in the areas of digital connectivity, digital literacy, and data security to bridge this gap. Second, the low-income countries are facing serious fiscal constraints due to the pandemic. To enable them to go for ambitious cash transfer programs, they need enhanced support measures from the multilateral and regional financial institutions. The World Bank and IMF need to scale up their emergency support measures as well as reduce bureaucracy and conditionalities to ensure timely access of the low-income countries to emergency funds. Third, we need a multi-stakeholder approach to make cash transfer programs successful. There should also be strong coordination among governments, NGOs, and UN agencies to avoid a situation where some people receive benefits from multiple sources while others are completely left behind. Finally, cash transfers should be linked with creation of livelihood opportunities and driving socioeconomic changes. To this end, we encourage right balance of conditional and unconditional cash transfers and proper monitoring of the end use of the cash to drive expected results. Conditional cash transfers can be leveraged to drive socioeconomic changes. For example, co-management of natural resources, afforestation, girls' education, etc. The development and humanitarian actors need to work in a more collaborative and coordinated manner to find the appropriate balance in this regard, especially in the time of major crisis. The humanitarian agencies working in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, have introduced some innovative solutions to transfer cash through digital means in coordination with the government agencies. I'd like to rest it here. We have a rich panel of discussants to elaborate on some of these issues. I look forward to a fruitful discussions. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for a real call to action there, which is wonderful to hear. really highlighting the digital inclusion and how to ensure that everybody who needs to can access cash, and using that digital inclusion and transformation as a way to reach more people. A really helpful call to investment in digital literacy and security, and an ask to multilaterals to scale up access to these methods to bring about stronger coordination between governments, UN, NGOs, to make sure no one is left behind, and to make sure that cash can be used to achieve socioeconomic objectives. Really helpful learning and good practice and thoughts. So thank you very much. I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank you, Foreign Minister, for your statement and your participation, as I know you will need to leave shortly for another meeting. So we'd just like to thank you greatly for bringing those thoughts, and that learning to the table. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our next speaker, who is Mr. Francesco Rocca, President of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you for being such a great moderator. I'm very happy that you are with us today. Thank you, of course, to the permanent mission of Turkey, of Norway, to the European Union, the International Federation, of course, but also to our member, the Turkish Red Crescent. And thank to all the speakers for being part of this event. Your Excellencies, distinguished colleagues and participants, since the World Humanitarian Summit in 2016, there has been an increased focus across the humanitarian system on both cash and voucher assistance and localization, driven largely by commitments made under the Grand Bargain and more recently, the COVID-19 pandemic. This has resulted in a significant uptake in the use of cash and voucher assistance, but progress on localization. Cash assistance and localization share several common objectives and outcomes, including the decentralization of humanitarian decision-making, the empowerment of local communities and actors, the increased relevance and cost efficiency of humanitarian assistance, and, as we just listened, transformation of traditional humanitarian structures and systems. So it is not accidental that today our event focuses on scaling, reach, and strengthening local action for cash programming. The COVID-19 pandemic is having an impact not only on the health of people around the world, but also significantly constraining people's ability to meet their basic needs and impairing their economic resilience. This is why, since the beginning of the pandemic, more and more humanitarian organizations have scaled up the use of cash and voucher assistance as a relevant option to respond to the scale of these crises. Giving cash to people facing crisis helps address a wide range of needs, from rent, food, education, to hygiene items that help prevent diseases, for spreading or encouraging access to healthcare. It allows them to prepare, prioritize, and take care of their family based on their own preferences and decisions. Many governments have also adopted their cash-based social protection or assistance programming to respond to COVID-19. Cash assistance is seen by many as well placed to mitigate some of the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on household income and livelihoods, as well as offering a safer option when delivered digitally. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent and Red Crescent Network have been leading large-scale cash programs for decades in response to a broad spectrum of disaster and emergency all around the globe. But the COVID-19 pandemic has also acted as an accelerator for cash programming for our network, and especially through the use of digital cash, for example, through the use of mobile devices. Across the Red Crescent network, just less than 50% of national societies globally now use cash. And there has been around a 55% increase in the number of people reached last year, from 5.4 million to 8.5 million people. 4 years ago, there were only 16 national societies involved in cash flow. Moving forward, the IFRC has set up an ambitious target to deliver the 50% of humanitarian assistance through cash by 2025. Cash preparedness continues to be the cornerstone of effective cash scale-up and strengthening local action through investments in improving the capacity and operational readiness of national societies to provide scalable and timely cash assistance that is one of our priority areas. It is more and efficient humanitarian assistance through increasing the uptake of cash assistance. For cash programming to work effectively and be accountable to the people our sector serves, we must be embedded at community level. More than ever before, the challenges faced by international organizations in deploying on the ground during the COVID-19 pandemic highlights the need for an ever-increasing localized approach. Because of their everyday work, volunteers know, with or without immediate physical access to community, which people are most vulnerable, most at risk of falling through the gaps of extensive social safety nets. Cash also provides the flexibility to deliver assistance as humanitarian, providing additional cash for refugees who risk being left behind in the current COVID-19 crisis. And one of our largest programs is the Emergency Social Safety Net, which through the eco-funded partnership with the IFRC and the Turkish Red Crescent provides monthly cash assistance to more than 1.5 million people. And these programs give people the dignity, freedom, and independence to take control of their own lives and further contribute to the communities that host them. And we will hear more about this from the president of the Turkish Red Crescent, Dr. Kerem Kinik, in a few seconds. And we are also seeing an uptake of the use of digital technologies in data collection and data management, as well as digital payments. In the Africa region alone, over 80% of cash intervention were delivered digitally using mobile phones. So I'm pleased that today we can hear more about some of these exciting programs in Turkey, in Lebanon, in Kenya, in Bangladesh, from our national societies and partners. These programs provide immense opportunity to harness new ways of working so that we can build our collective knowledge and drive greater impact through the cash program. So thank you for the attention. Now I leave the floor to Kerem Kinik, the president of the Turkish Red Crescent. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco Rocca. Thank you for the inspiring comments and notes and learning about how far we've come and how far we are still to go and the future direction. 80% of cash through digital cash in Africa. That's very inspiring, and more needs to be done. Fantastic. As you say, let's turn to our next speaker, the president of the Turkish Red Crescent Society and vice president of the IFRC, Dr. Kerem Kinik. The floor is yours. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Emma. Honorable Minister, distinguished ambassadors, the President of Federation, and the President of the Government, His Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be with you all this morning at this timely and important panel discussion on cash-based programming around the world. I would like to first begin by expressing my gratitude to the permanent mission of Turkey and Norway, to the United Nations and European Union and the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society, IFRC, for co-hosting this valuable event with us. We are living in a world facing a global pandemic, conflict, and climate catastrophes linked to them, displacement, migration, and growing number of refugees and vulnerable people. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic is a humanitarian crisis we have not experienced in nearly a century. It continues to have dire consequences for people and societies, particularly for those who are already vulnerable or impacted by other humanitarian crises. The pandemic has multidimensional negative impact on people's well-being. This situation has not only resulted in increased number of people in need, but also intensified the existent vulnerabilities in affected populations. Therefore, our humanitarian response must fully integrate a response to humanitarian needs resulting from other crises as well. The pandemic and other threats have shown us the need for an effective cash assistance programming able to respond rapidly in emergencies and during recovery. Cash-based assistance provided itself a shock-resilient and effective tool in the delivery of humanitarian assistance in many contexts, including this global pandemic. The freedom of choice it provides to beneficiaries is a prime example of how we can assist and empower vulnerable people in a dignified manner. Reduction of cost associated with delivery and therefore the cost efficiency in cash interventions is also an important component for humanitarians as it maximizes the support we provide to the end user. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I believe the promising development in humanitarian sector in the last decade is scaling trend of using cash as a tool to respond to the needs of vulnerable people. This venue provides us with an important opportunity to explore and discuss avenues of both extending the coverage area of cash programming as well as looking at ways to further strengthen the social protection and assistance it provides to millions in need across the globe. As the Turkish Red Crescent Kızılay, we have been implementing cash transfer programs for many years now. I'm pleased to share that currently we are providing assistance through cash transfers to more than 2 million individuals every month. One of our flagship programs is the Emergency Social Safety Net, ESSN, which we are proud to be implementing with our partner IFRC, Turkish Ministry of Family and Social Assistance, and with the funding from European Union, DG ECHO. Here, I would like to thank them all for their strong cooperation. The ESSN is a cash transfer program providing support to vulnerable populations and has become the world's largest cash-based humanitarian assistance program. Our cash platform, Kızılay Card, is a unique model where humanitarian, private, and public sectors come together, and its real-time integration with existing national social protection mechanisms. With this, we avoid duplications, increase our inclusiveness while decreasing exclusion errors to ensure those who need support are getting it. Another advantage of the platform is its ready-to-go mechanism that can be used for different programs with different wallets and criteria for each in one single card. In other words, multiple programs and partnership in one card. Distinguished guests and the participants, we all know that one size does not fit all. We face different contexts, challenges, and resources in crisis. Therefore, systems and mechanisms we establish must be adjustable and customizable. We are working closely with the IFRC and other partners to share our experiences, lessons learned, and knowledge from employing cash-based programming. On this note, I'm excited and proud to announce a new IFRC TRC Turkish Red Crescent initiative on replicating the Kızılay platform in different contexts. I believe this high-level side event taking place during the 76th session of the National United Nations General Assembly is of utmost importance for us to highlight and promote the importance of cash programming. Thank you once again for joining us today. I wish a fruitful and productive discussion. Take care of yourself and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing those highlights of the SSM program, just hearing again how important it is to work collaboratively with different partners to come together and to be able to adapt and refine those programs over time, Dr. Kinnick, as needs and as things change, such as this pandemic we're in. So thank you very much to you. I'd also like to, on behalf of all the participants, to again thank all of our distinguished speakers for their thought-provoking remarks and statements and sharing those really important learnings and experiences that we've heard so far. We will now hear from several distinguished speakers in a moderated discussion who will speak in more detail about cash programming from different operational contexts and highlighting the learning that they've experienced to date from those contexts. I'd just like to remind people, if you would like to ask any questions, please do so in the chat box and we'll seek to try and answer some of those in the Q&A that follows. I see an active chat box, which is fantastic. So please do continue. Our first speaker in this moderated panel discussion is Mr. Bülent Öztürk, coordinator of the Kızılaycart Cash-Based Assistance Programme for the Turkish Red Crescent. Mr. Bülent Öztürk is an experienced social worker and logistician and the current programme coordinator of the SSN Kızılaycart Cash-Based Assistance Programme at Turkish Red Crescent. In addition to his 10 years of experience in cash in both national and international arenas within the Red Cross Red Crescent movement, Mr. Öztürk has extensive knowledge of crisis management and a great deal of experience in operating in disaster regions, having served as part of Turkish Red Crescent's relief efforts in many different countries since 2003 and in the aftermath of multiple domestic disasters in Turkey since 1992. The question I'd like to ask you, or for you to speak about, Mr. Öztürk, is as we've all experienced, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the world we live in and impacted how we do business and our contact with other people. How has the pandemic affected ESSN operationally, particularly from who it has impacted to how you distribute cash? And what lessons are there from operating ESSN during the pandemic that you will be able to take forward and you can share with us today? Thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Emma, for your kind introduction. Dear distinguished guests, panelists, and the colleagues, please let me first thank all of you for this opportunity to share our experiences and learn from other colleagues around the world about cash programming during COVID-19. Kızılaycart is coordinatorship that provides cash assistance to vulnerable refugees living in Turkey under international and temporary protection through several programs like the ESSN. Providing basic needs assistance to refugees is intended to support the social cohesion of refugees within local communities. As an innovative platform for humanitarian society, Kızılaycart provides the most vulnerable refugees with their basic humanitarian needs and builds a bridge to more sustainable assistance with the use of a multidimensional and comprehensive monitoring system. The Emergency Social Safety Net program, which is implementing with IFRC, as mentioned before, the largest ever cash transfer program funded by the EU, provides monthly cash support to over 1.5 million individuals to help them cover their basic needs. With the COVID-19 pandemic affecting communities all around the world, it was crucially important for us to conduct a survey to measure the socioeconomic impacts of COVID-19 on the ESSN recipients in order to identify the possible areas of further interventions. In that regard, the TRC and the IFRC have designed and conducted a rapid ad hoc assessment survey to better understand the effect of COVID-19 on the affected refugee population benefiting from the ESSN program. Despite the challenging conditions COVID-19 has imposed, TRC was able to conduct the survey remotely via phone calls. The rapid assessment collected data on income, employment condition, access to basic services, and ability to use the Kızılaycart as well. Our joint impact of COVID-19 on ESSN beneficiaries report was shared with both program stakeholders and also the larger humanitarian network through various platforms. The impact assessment has provided required evidence for all the ESSN stakeholders and the donors to inform decision. I can summarize TRC and IFRC response to COVID-19 within the ESSN via 4 pillars. The first pillar is continuous cash transfer cycle and vertical expansion. Our data management systems were able to work remotely and no delay was experienced in terms of the necessary file transfer between ESSN stakeholders or payment cycles through continuous investments in IT systems since the beginning of the ESSN implementation. In addition, based on the findings from the COVID-19 impact assessment on decreasing economic conditions, ESSN partners, Ministry of Family and Social Services, IFRC, TRC, and DG ECHO have decided to provide economic top-ups to all eligible households. The decision was taken and implemented rapidly thanks to our flexible system and technical infrastructure and the ESSN stakeholders in decision-making. As the second pillar, I will briefly talk about the community sensitization activities. More than 2 million SMSs in 4 languages, Arabic, Farsi, Pashto, and Turkish, are sent to more than 360,000 households, emphasizing the importance of measurements against COVID-19. We have sent out more than 100 social media posts from the Kızılay Kart Facebook page about COVID-19 and services that might be relevantly needed during the pandemic. Additionally, frequently asked questions related to COVID-19 were prepared and published through Kızılay Kart website rapidly. Our Turkish Red Crescent call center remained operational and responded to more than 5,000 COVID-19 related queries in 5 different languages from the refugee community. Innovation and the remote focus group discussion is the third pillar that I would like to talk about. To be able to continue monitoring and evaluation activities and ensure continuous data collection, we had to find an innovative way. As a solution, our M&E teams handed tablets to provide internet collection to the households and conducted the discussions through the use of technology. We have received positive feedback from the ESSM beneficiary households regarding the remote FGD implementation, where we changed our data collection methodology due to COVID-19. As the last pillar, I'd like to mention enhanced field level activities. Turkish Red Crescent had established service center to receive Kızılay Kart program applications in several provinces where the refugee community are densely populated within the scope of its auxiliary role. Service centers plays a key role also in providing services to households to update their relevant information, which is essential to the social protection services. Keeping the centers operational even during COVID-19 pandemic was a huge necessity. By taking various protective measures, including ensuring social distancing, disinfection at the entrance and the temperature controls, the centers have remained functional. Informative brochures and posters are placed in the centers while videos are on air to provide more info on protection from the virus. Also, the outreach teams conducted outbound calls to the households with plus 65 years old individuals with no other adults to assess their emerging needs and providing referrals when needed. More than 14,000 households were reached through phone calls. In addition, the outreach teams have delivered Kızılay cards to the households who were not able to leave their homes to collect their cards from the service centers and financial service provider branches. Just to summarize our actions in a nutshell, to remain operational and respond to needs during the COVID-19 pandemic. We ensured no interruption on ESSN implementation within TRC-IFRC partnership that promotes movement's leading position in the humanitarian field. Shared critical health and safety information to refugees via SMS and other communication channels regularly. Enhanced their outreach activities to vulnerable households to increase access to cash assistance and other services like protection, health, and the others. Of payments for ESSN recipients with a joint decision by all stakeholders and donors. While carrying out the above-mentioned activities, we have maintained day-to-day coordination between TRC and IFRC teams to minimize duplicated efforts in the field. Thank you for listening to our reflections on COVID-19 experience from the ESSM perspective. I would like to be happy to answer questions if you have any, and I am looking forward to hear about the valuable efforts of other colleagues around the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bülent, for that really informative presentation. I mean, there's so much in there that we could unpack. It really shows just what it takes and what it requires to manage the largest humanitarian cash assistance program in the world today. Really helpful reflections, a lot for us to digest. So thank you very much. I'm sure there will be questions in the chat for you, but for now we'll keep moving just to keep to time. Our next speaker is MD Firoz Salahuddin, who is Secretary General of the Bangladesh Red Crescent. Mr. Udin joined the Bangladesh Red Crescent Society as the Secretary General back in 2018. Before joining Bangladesh Red Crescent, he has more than 34 years work experience in various government ministries, departments and directorates, in the field of public administration, project management, institutional capacity building, human resource development, fund management, and governance and refugee management. So a huge breadth of experience we're going to take advantage of today. And the question, Mr. Udin, that we would like to hear from you about and hear your expertise and learning is that while COVID-19 has been a great accelerator, cash assistance originally started as a humanitarian tool after natural hazards and situations of insecurity and crises. Could you please share with us how cash has been beneficial in Bangladesh, where people have been displaced after an emergency event? And we look forward to your insights and reflections. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Emma, Honorable President and Vice President of IFRC, Honorable Foreign Secretary and His Excellency, the Ambassador of Bangladesh, distinguished participants, panelists, speaker. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. You know, Bangladesh is one of the most densely populated countries in the world. Due to its geographical position, the country is most vulnerable to climate change and experience different natural and man-made disaster and crisis. Bangladesh Red Crescent Society is also addressing one of the biggest humanitarian crises, that is the displaced people from North Rakhine state of Myanmar in Cox's Bazar and in Bhasanchar. To cope up this situation, it developed many innovative plans and strategies which reduce vulnerabilities and make people resilient. Bangladesh Red Crescent Society has been using cash grant in envelope since long time. As the advantage of cash transfer program become more evident, Bangladesh Red Crescent Society increased the scale and geographic reach of cash intervention. Currently, Bangladesh Red Crescent Society is implementing cash-based intervention in forecast-based financing, emergencies, and in development phases. During COVID-19 pandemic, when life and livelihood is stuck and restricted, this system proved to be very effective. We consider cash is power and cash is dignified way of assistance. Why cash transfer? Now, you may be interested to know, other than conventional assistance like helping people directly with relief material, why cash transfer is important and effective. Through lesson learned, we found during crisis, people need quick assistance according to their need that gives them hope, flexibility of choice, cost efficiency, revitalize the local trade also. This also involves power transfer with better tracking and reduction of risks when using electronic transfer. It also helps to ensure accountability to crisis-affected people because it gives households freedom to identify their most urgent needs and priorities in a dignified manner. Now comes, what is the modality of cash programming? We follow different types of cash and voucher assistance, as for example, unconditional and multi-purpose cash grant, conditional cash grant, vouchers, and cash for work program. Selection of modalities of cash program depends on to whom, where, and when is the requirement. As per example, unconditional cash grant is effective in pre-disaster situation. In early recovery and response, conditional cash grant is very effective. Voucher is helpful in refugee camps, and in transition period, cash for work proved to be very helpful. About our delivery mechanism, for effective and quick service, we need prudent service provider. Our delivery mechanism is also very interesting and innovative. For quickest and effective service, we engage and utilize some financial service provider like post office, mobile money transfer companies, bank, use of passbook, and finally cash in envelope system. Depending on the design, the same cash intervention may improve the access to food, healthcare, to education, to shelter, and to livelihood, either in emergency or in recovery context. With this mechanism, we have already reached 117,535 households and total cash distributed $7.2 million in remote vulnerable areas of Bangladesh. We mostly rely on post office services. Next comes the mobile-based financial service provider, finally bank and cash envelope for cash delivery perspective. Cash assistance in 2020 and 21, that is in COVID pandemic, we mostly worked on response and in long-term recovery operation. During this period, 5,500 displaced families from Myanmar also covered in Cash Cox's Bazar. About our intervention process, the success of cash assistance depends on effective intervention process. In intervention process, quick beneficiaries identification, verification of beneficiaries list, setting up cash transfer mechanism, transfer of cash in time, post monitoring is very much important. This process also involves community engagement and accountability. A complaint response mechanism should also be there. About our strength, now comes what is the strength of Bangladesh Red Crescent Society. Fortunately, Bangladesh Red Crescent Society developed its capacity and gathered experience in cash-based intervention. In the meantime, Bangladesh Red Crescent Society developed and follow a cash standing operating procedure SOP and trained staff and volunteers on cash and have effective monitoring mechanism. About our learning, finally, our learning on cash program in time of COVID-19 is very much positive and encouraging. This tool and skill-based mechanism involves less gathering and gives flexibility of choice, quick support, and overall a dignified way of helping people in need. Though there is limitation of lockdown in COVID situation, some people are unfamiliar with the technology-based intervention, and this mechanism involves some service charge for the service provider, but it proved to be cost-effective. However, the recurrent and multiple disasters increase the gap between the damage versus humanitarian assistance by donor. Finally, in short, I tried to give you a brief picture on cash programming before and during COVID-19 situation in Bangladesh. Thank you for giving me the opportunity and listening to me. We are together for humanity. Thank you very, very much. Thank you all.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you very much, Mr. Salahuddin, for those really thoughtful reflections, highlighting the benefits of cash really from a people's perspective as a tool to make aid go further and provide assistance with dignity, as well as providing a really comprehensive oversight of the different cash modalities according to the phase of response as well as the context, and all those important learning points about how we deliver cash. So thank you very much. Over now to our next panel speaker. Our next speaker is Miss Elizabeth Hendry, Acting Global Focal Point for Cash from Norwegian Refugee Council. Welcome, Elizabeth. Liz Hendry is Head of Chameleon, a cash research accountability and learning network in Lebanon, co-led by the Norwegian Refugee Council, Oxfam and Solidarité International. She has worked in the humanitarian and development sectors for 15 years, including for NRC, the British Red Cross, UNAIDS and the International AIDS Society. Liz, in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic, Lebanon has been affected by an economic depression, which the World Bank has ranked as one of the most severe since the mid-19th century, as well as the blast. What role has humanitarian cash assistance played in responding to these multi-pronged crises over the past 18 months? We'd really welcome your reflections. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Emma, and it's an honour to be part of this esteemed event and amongst such distinguished speakers. So thank you very much for the invitation. To answer your question, it's played a vital role in Lebanon. Even before these crises, Lebanon had arguably one of the most advanced humanitarian cash responses in the world. Both in terms of the scale, but also in terms of the collaborative and digitalized delivery systems that have been developed in country. Assistance has really been scaled up over the past 18 months. For example, the caseload for multi-purpose cash assistance to Syrian refugees, which is one of the largest elements of the response, has quadrupled to now be reaching more than 1 million people with monthly transfers. And cash assistance and vouchers represent a quarter of the official humanitarian response in Lebanon. Cash assistance has also emerged as a key intervention for assisting other populations in Lebanon. And this is really important because there's been a major deterioration in the situation for Lebanese migrants and refugees alike. About half of all Lebanese people are estimated to be living in poverty now, and there's been a reported increase in social tensions, including tensions related to the groups that receive aid. However, it's not been easy to do this scale up or to sustain cash and voucher assistance. And while the CVA delivery systems in Lebanon are mature, the banking crises and COVID-19 pandemic have presented many operational challenges that have tested them. This has included shortages in liquidity, the switch to a single currency, ATM-related risks to do with overcrowding and harassment, COVID-19 safety issues, and a big reduction in the number of ATMs available for recipients to cash out their assistance. Many cash programs in Lebanon were designed at a time when Lebanon's banking system was considered to be well functioning, and therefore we've seen some fundamental programmatic assumptions which have underpinned cash programs being tested during this period. Earlier in the year, Chameleon and the Durable Solutions platform published a report which documented how the humanitarian cash response in Lebanon had navigated the multiple crises. It's based on key informants with about 40 cash actors, donors and coordinators, and was made possible thanks to the support of our donors, the EU Madad Trust Fund, the German Federal Foreign Office, the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, UK aid from the British people, and for the Durable Solutions platform, their donor RDPP. And the report documents the rolling wave of adaptations that have been put in place by cash actors. It documents learning, for example, of how agencies have negotiated preferential exchange rates with financial service providers, have begun to stagger payments, deployed field staff to ATMs for monitoring and crowd control, and enhanced food and commodity price monitoring. There's also examples of how recipient feedback has influenced adaptations. For example, a cash actor who bundled transfers but then returned to monthly transfers based on feedback that recipients preferred it that way. Sometimes it's been hard for cash actors to make adaptations which match recipient preferences. For example, staggering payments throughout the month has been an effective way to navigate liquidity and overcrowding issues at ATMs. But some refugees have highlighted that not knowing which day of the month their assistance is uploaded anymore makes it difficult to meet commitments such as when they pay their rent to landlords. The report concluded that cash programs have overall been operationally resilient and continue to be relevant to support beneficiaries' dignity and displacement by helping them to meet their basic needs and avoid evictions. In the words of one donor respondent to the report, cash has been a life-saving tool for beneficiaries. It would have been catastrophic if we didn't have cash programs. Overall, the adaptations have meant that recipients have been able to redeem their assistance on a monthly basis and have felt generally safe in doing so. Cash assistance has remained a preferred modality of assistance for most surveyed refugees in a context where the top 3 expenditures are food, rent, and health. As one of the surveyed respondents explained, cash is better because we need it to pay for hospitals in case our children get sick, and we can buy what we need from the supermarket. I use it to buy diapers and also baby formula for my infant. The cash assistance is our only form of income now. However, there was also common feedback that the transfer value, now in lira instead of US dollars, has not been sufficient to meet the same extent of basic needs as it did before, despite being revised multiple times because of rising prices and reduced purchasing power. It's hoped that a recent agreement to double the current lira transfer value of MPC and move towards the dollarization assistance will help to address this issue. So to conclude, the experiences of Lebanon over the past 18 months have underscored how a continued adaptation underpinned by evidence has enabled the cash response not only to be sustained, but also to scale up to meet rising needs, with lots of lessons learned along the way. Looking ahead for Lebanon, cash priorities include the need to find ways to better link cash and services and build a more complete and comprehensive picture of needs across different population groups. Documentation of learning continues to be important, and we really valued the technical exchanges we've had, for example, with the ESSN teams in Turkey and cash actors in Jordan during this period. The important role played by CALP, and also opportunities such as this event to share and listen to other experiences. Thank you.
Thank you very much for fitting so much into that statement and comment. Really interesting to see those insights and evidence-based for learning on the use of cash to meet humanitarian needs, where you have multiple crises really intersecting for people. Interesting to see that cash in itself remains a preferred tool for people, especially when their needs are becoming increasingly diverse given the complexities of those crises. And an important reminder to ensure that the design of the programme, you called it continuous adaptation, which was great, to reflect that fast changing reality and the changing context, and also to make sure that it is reactive to people's feedback. Really important to prioritise that adaptation and that's underpinned by evidence. So thank you very much, Liz. Really insightful learning that you've shared with us today. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Dr. Halima Sadhu, Head of Research and Learning for the Kenya Red Cross. Dr. Halima is responsible for supporting research in humanitarian issues, creating appropriate and effective knowledge management frameworks to support decision-making in the humanitarian action, disaster relief and community resilience spaces. Her passion is to generate data and information through action-based research that is relevant to communities dealing with situations that call for humanitarian and development action. So welcome, Dr. Halima. What we'd like to hear from you, continuing our theme of evidence and learning, cash is transitioning to digital delivery. How did the Kenyan Red Cross start to deliver cash digitally? And how do you ensure that cash is getting to the right people and that you can protect individuals' information and data? So over to the floor to you, Dr. Halima. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Excellency, distinguished guests and colleagues. So I will be speaking on behalf of Dr. Asha Mohammed, the Secretary General for Kenya Red Cross Society, who due to unavoidable circumstances was called in by the Minister of Health with regards to the COVID-19 intervention. So she needed to attend to that. I will be presenting our experience in terms of transitioning from hard cash into digital delivery of cash. And it's important for me to just highlight that Kenya Red Cross has been doing cash transfer for the last 15 years. Initially, we started with paying cash, hard cash, where our staff were forced to carry cash and travel with it far and wide so they can reach out to the most vulnerable population. And then we transitioned to the use of voucher or cards. And then with the increase of mobile connections and mobile phones, we moved to a mobile money transfer in terms of delivering cash. And I think it's important to note that this mobile cash transfer was very useful in the context of COVID-19. So what has enhanced Kenya Red Cross reach and expansion with regards to digital delivery of cash is we've developed a number of partnerships with mobile money transfer providers. And this has enabled Kenya Red Cross transition from a payment of hard cash to digital delivery, of course, leveraging on the mobile cash transfer. This has been possible because of the increased partnership with mobile money transfer providers like Safaricom, and also because of the mobile Safaricom and Airtel and other mobile service providers providing a subsidized cost with regards to the transfer that Kenya Red Cross is undertaking. So it has made it a bit affordable to undertake this particular initiative. Also, in addition of increase in terms of access to mobile devices, as well as connectivities across different parts of the country. This transformation with regards to cash transfer in terms of digital transfer has come in very handy in response to COVID-19 pandemic, considering that the measures put in place, including total lockdown or limited or controlled movement, made it very difficult to reach the most vulnerable population. With regards to ensuring that cash gets to the right person or the right people, we've been using the national identification number because for you to be able to access money through your mobile transfer, you must have a national identification number, or what we call ID in Kenya. And this is because this is what enables the mobile money providers get to know your customer. However, because of this particular condition, it has been difficult for those who don't have identification cards to be able to access cash. Either way, all is not lost because as a society, we have gone further ahead to exploit a number of innovations around cash transfer in an effort to streamline and improve our efficiency in delivering humanitarian assistance in the most timely manner and ensuring that cash gets to the right person. This has been done through several stages for the last number of years. And if I give a quick example, in 2018, we piloted the use of blockchain technology to support the cash transfer process. This was due to several factors such as the long manual process of registering and validating beneficiaries in an emergency response, and the high incidence of fraud and manipulation of beneficiary data that was collected manually. So to ensure that there's accountability and transparency, we piloted the blockchain technology to ensure that we save time in terms of the registration, but more importantly, we ensure that there is no fraud. Using blockchain, we were confident that beneficiary data was secure and private, and those that qualified for humanitarian assistance were indeed the ones receiving the cash. And finally, we were confident with the information that we were relaying back to our communities, partners, and donors. Solutions and blockchain. Each time there's a disaster or an emergency, this will make the process much faster and efficient. People who lack a legal recognized ID are often left out, as indicated earlier, with regards to digital cash transfer because they do not meet the know your customer requirement to get a SIM card to be able to access the M-Pesa account, which is the mostly used form of money transfer in Kenya. To address this, Kenya Red Cross conducted a pilot project using digital ID or identification IDs so that for those who do not have legal ID and cash was distributed using a money vendor. There have been good learnings in terms of this project, in terms of the rollout of digital solutions, taking into account not to widen the digital divide, especially considering challenges around digital literacy, access to mobile devices, and connectivity infrastructure. One of the critical questions was asked also is around data protection. How do we ensure that data protection happens with regards to our transformation in terms of digital money transfer? One of the most important things is that Kenya Red Cross already has a data protection policy that guides the collection, processing, and storing of the beneficiary data. And in 2019, the government of Kenya also enacted the Data Protection Act, which we align our processes with regards to that particular act as well. The use of blockchain technology to store beneficiary data to ensure that data stays private cannot be manipulated or accessed by an unauthorized personnel. This has enabled us to be able to ensure that there is data protection, but more importantly, accountability and limit incidents of fraud or money going to the wrong person. As part of the digital identity project, the Kenya Red Cross participated in a data protection impact assessment, which critically looks at the risk associated with the data collection and storage processes and made recommendations to mitigate these risks. And also moving further, Kenya Red Cross has gone further to revise and align its cash and voucher assistance standard operating procedures to include what we call DP, data preparedness, and has put mechanism in place to prepare field teams before every intervention to ensure data protection in CVA, and more importantly, protection, gender, and inclusion is an inherent way of programming. Last but not least, Kenya Red Cross in 2019 made a commitment in terms of increasing its humanitarian intervention to cash, about up to 75% of its humanitarian intervention, including emergencies response, as well as development and resilience building into cash. This also includes cash as a modality for focus-based action or anticipatory action. Thank you, and over to you, Emma.
Thank you so much again for those insightful learnings and really sort of pragmatic tips on your experience and how we can improve other cash operations. So thank you very much. I'd like to turn now to the question and answer session of today. Given the time constraints, we're moving along. There's been so much rich learning shared. I'd just like to ask the panel if they could keep their responses quite brief, preferably 1 minute to answer a question. I've got one question for each of you that we selected from the range of questions that have been asked. There's been lots of debate and discussions. You've obviously really stimulated that on the chat, so thank you. Liz, I wanted to come to you. I'll come to you first. What are the challenges of implementing cash transfers in contexts where serious disasters have led to market closures? And if you could just reply for 1 minute, that would be appreciated. Mr. Bulent, I'll be coming to you to ask how are local small and medium entrepreneurs included or are participating in the Kızılay Kart program? That would be great if you could just speak to that briefly. Feroz, how could humanitarian actors increase the use of cash as an early action to reduce the anticipated impact of disasters? Would be great if we could draw on your experience of using cash in early action. And then Dr. Halima, how do you ensure inclusive approach to cash programming, especially those with more considerable vulnerabilities? That would be great if you had any feedback there for one minute. I'm sorry to push you panelists, but there's a lot to cover. So thank you very much. Liz, we'll come to you first.
Yes, sure. And thanks very much for the question. I mean, maybe I can answer this in sort of relation to the Beirut port blast and sort of reflect on the fact that, you know, for many humanitarian workers working in Beirut, they hadn't had the experience of working on a disaster before. You know, it was a protracted crisis that they were used to. And so the Beirut blast that impacted, 300,000 households in Beirut, caused widespread disaster, led to a kind of a shift to, emergency response and, needing to better understand the impact on markets as well. So I think one of the kind of learning points was, the fact that there wasn't a great deal of markets analysis expertise in country. And so it was a steep learning curve to kind of conduct market analysis, for example, to sort of help inform decisions about shelter responses and the availability of materials such as glass, which became one of the most kind of in-demand materials needed following the response. So I think that would be my reflection, is how the kind of the port blast led to, and identified the fact that there was a need for more market analysis expertise and capacity, and that's something that then had to be sort of filled.
Thanks, Liz. Some really important reflections there about the importance of markets and how really it should be something we analyse in everything that we do as humanitarians. Excellent. Bulent, great to come to you for a reflection on that question about how local small and medium entrepreneurs are included and participate in the Kızılay Kart platform. Thank you. Program, sorry.
Thank you very much, Emma. And also thank you very much to participate for the question. Our flagship cash program's eligibility is based on defined vulnerability criteria, including components linked with additional livelihoods, protection and basic services support as complementary to cash assistance. It's of great importance to enable access to additional services alongside the provision of cash. Within the complementary referral structure, individuals identified with capacity or willingness to participate actively in the labor market are referred to as available socioeconomic enhancement livelihood activities available within the Turkish Red Crescent. An internal referral mechanism is established to maintain the complementary linkage between cash and livelihoods and protection, and following the identified individuals, a tailored plan is delivered through Turkish Red Crescent community centers based on each individual's capacity. The opportunities within this referral structure include entrepreneurship support through the provision of relevant equipment and additional cash support, as well as referrals to vocational or language training, which will ease their access to the active labor market. It's my answer. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bulent, and thank you to all the panelists for sticking to time. It's much appreciated. If we could now come to MD Feroz Salah Udin, just to hear about your thoughts on how humanitarian actors can increase the use of cash as an early action tool. That would be fantastic. Thank you, sir.
So thank you, Emma. It is this cash transfer process is also very much important and useful before disaster also. In our country, you know that we have so many natural disasters like cyclone, and we from long time we are doing this this type of assistance in cyclone, before the triggering of cyclone, and rescue mission for shelter, food, and other emergencies. And this cash grant is equally important during and before disaster, and we really utilize this for this humanitarian disaster purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those wise words, sir. And then Dr. Halima, just, you know, how do you ensure inclusive approach to cash programming? So especially those with more severe vulnerabilities, for example, integration of feedback around different genders and gender equalities. That would be great to hear 1 minute's view on that, please, Dr. Halima. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. I think the critical thing that Kenya Red Cross has undertaken is to ensure that inclusive approach to cash programming by aligning all our intervention to the protection, gender and inclusion framework, and ensuring that we have a PGI focal person who continuously raise awarenesses about PGI. And more importantly is ensuring that the criteria that we use for targeting that we co-develop with the critical stakeholders, including the communities, takes into consideration the marginalized population, such as people living with disability, child-led household, woman-led household, and continuously undertaking a risk analysis, especially based on exposure, vulnerability as indicated, and coping mechanism. More importantly, by looking into the social economic status of this particular population at risks, disability, education level, the poverty level, employment status. And because of this continuous assessment with regards to the risks, this has enabled Kenya Red Cross to be able to actually try to reduce the gap in terms of ensuring that the most vulnerable are reached. But it's important to note that, Emma, this is a continuous process, and it is not something that we can say we've attained 100%, because continuous awareness in terms of PGI and leaving no one behind has to always take place, considering that we are getting into new areas of intervention, there's more technology, and also there's also in and out in terms of exit and entry of staff. So continuous learning around PGI is what is enabling us to reduce that gap in terms of reaching the most vulnerable. Thank you, and over, Emma.
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to extend a huge thank you to our panelists today, from all the participants and all the organisers and hosters, to say thank you for sharing your learning and experience with us today. You've given us lots to think about and lots to take up looking forward. We'd now like to move on to our closing remarks. Our speaker here is His Excellency Mr. Odd Inge Kavhelm, Deputy Permanent Representative on the Permanent Mission of Norway to the United Nations. Your Excellency, over to you for closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma, and I join you in thanking the participants, the presenters for all their insights, the lessons learned, and so on cash programming in the times of COVID-19. It's been very useful and very lots of lessons learned that we take with us from this discussion. Thank you so much for convening us, and congratulations on a successful event, I must say as well. I believe that this demonstrated how far the humanitarian community has come since we all signed up to increase the use of cash through the Grand Bargain of 2016. Since then, cash assistance has continued to grow and is now a major part of almost every humanitarian response. The total amount of cash assistance doubled from 2016 to 2019, and it is an increasing important tool in the humanitarian toolbox. Cash assistance continues to save lives and livelihoods and to challenge humanitarian actors to think differently and deliver better. As for Norway, we stand firmly behind our grand bargain commitments. We've played an active role in efforts to increase the use of and improve the coordination of cash assistance across sectors. We believe this should be done in a way that ensures the greatest possible freedom of choice for people in need. We also require that our partners use cash in situations where this is the most effective way of providing assistance. It is indeed impressive to see how humanitarian agencies have scaled up the use of cash interventions over the past years. We do, however, believe that much more needs to be done. I would like to mention two aspects: local humanitarian action and cash coordination. Let me start with the first. As illustrated in several interventions today, cash assistance is driving a more local, more plural humanitarian system, including stronger links with governments. This is a development that we very much welcome. As we've heard from colleagues from Bangladesh and Turkey, cash assistance contributes to strengthen the links between state and non-state actors, including through new collaborative approaches. We've also heard, however, that there is not yet agreement about what localization means in practice. We are concerned that effective cash coordination is still lacking, both globally and at country level. This is why Norway, together with 94 signatories, sent a letter to the ERC in June, urging the Interagency Standing Committee to take a decision on the leadership and scope of cash coordination in the coming year. We strongly urge all partners to engage constructively in finding a solution, including giving concessions. To conclude, we need to continue exploring and build on best practices. The increased efficiency and effectiveness that cash-based humanitarian response can bring is critical. And just to remind us all, cash assistance is not only about efficiency and effectiveness, it's about people's dignity. Thank you very much, Emma. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for those really poignant remarks to close us and to highlight a lot of that learning we've heard throughout this session. So it's just left to me to say again a huge thank you to all our distinguished speakers, panelists, and all the participants who have joined us virtually today for this fascinating reflection, where I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone in saying that we've learned a lot and there's a lot to take forward. And so thank you for those closing remarks. So I think we can stop the recording and say thank you to everyone and have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.